ASEAN, or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, was established on 8 August 1967 with the signing of the ASEAN Declaration. But what is ASEAN? ASEAN is a regional organization consisting of 10 countries that Singapore is proudly part of. Singapore has played a big part in ASEAN, being one of the founding fathers and being an intellectual hub for ASEAN. ASEAN aims to maintain international peace and security, encourage international cooperation in the spheres of social, economic, and cultural developments. It also aims to accelerate economic growth, social progress, and cultural development in the spirit of equality. What has Singapore gained from being a member of this organization? ASEAN is currently driving the negotiation of a mega free trade agreement involving ASEAN and 6 other economies called the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which will be one of the biggest free trade areas in the world. This will ensure preferential market access, tax savings for people's export for Singapore, accelerating economic growth for our country. Singapore's domestic market consists of 5.6 million consumers. However, the ASEAN Economic Community's ambition is to integrate the 10 countries' economies into a single market and production base. This will mean that our domestic market is not 5.6 million consumers, but 628 million consumers. Singapore being the second smallest country in Asia, with a population of just 5.6 million, having 628 customers to our domestic market is a huge boost to our economy. Another boon would be the peace that was brought to Singapore by ASEAN. ASEAN has maintained peace in Southeast Asia, resulting in no 2 ASEAN countries having gone to war since 1967 when ASEAN was founded. This resulted in defense and security cooperation amongst ASEAN. The ASEAN Political Security Community is a collaboration between member states in defense matters which allows for defense cooperation where Southeast Asia is united on all fronts, allowing Singapore to be safer from terrorism, cyber attacks and such harmful threats from other countries, which can endanger Singapore's progress, prosperity, racial and religious harmony as well as our very way of life. Smaller countries are more vulnerable to such threats, and being the little red dot we are, it is important for Singapore to be protected from these threats as much as possible, which is why it is extremely advantageous for us to be part of ASEAN. ASEAN is also the most diverse regional organization in the world, with the member states speaking different languages, worshipping different gods, and having different forms of government. However, in spite of the vast differences, ASEAN has succeeded and could develop a sense of regional identity and solidarity. Ties of culture, race and kinship between our ethnic groups and corresponding groups in India, China or Southeast Asia are an advantage because they help us to understand and work with partners in these countries, allowing for free flow of goods and services, which is a huge benefit for our small nation and its economy. However, there definitely are disadvantages to Singapore being part of this organization. Firstly, implementation of agreements reached is not a lot. A survey showed that only 30% of commitments made among the ASEAN member states were implemented, and there is no central mechanism to enforce compliance. There is also selfishness amongst the state members, as there is the tendency to prioritize national issues and interests over regional issues and interests. This makes it difficult for Singapore's needs to be met. This also causes weak and bad leadership in ASEAN. For example, in 2011, as chair of ASEAN, Indonesia had to deal with many issues that could have divided ASEAN. There are also threats such as the US-China tensions threatening and affecting ASEAN. It is also shown that the ASEAN members have different sides and stances in the US-China disputes, which may threaten ASEAN's integrity in unification, and eventually may cause the breaking apart of ASEAN. This may cause Singapore to be in more complicated problems due to leadership issues and might tarnish Singapore's reputation. Another disadvantage would be that Singapore's economy is much more advanced than the other member states of ASEAN. This makes it harder for economic integration or the unification of economies in ASEAN. Our GDP is way higher than the others, making it disadvantageous for us when it comes to combining our economies. ASEAN as an organization faces lots of strengths and weaknesses as well as threats and opportunities. However, the strengths of ASEAN as well as the opportunities and advantages it provides for Singapore is far more substantial, the boons outweighing the banes. I feel that the disadvantages to Singapore being part of ASEAN are insignificant and way less important than the advantages. The advantages help to boost us in many ways as a small country, which is why I believe that Singapore being part of ASEAN is an incredible boon. ASEAN is a so-called gift from founding fathers that Singapore should treasure. Hence, I believe that Singapore should be part of ASEAN as it is an incredible opportunity and advantage for a small country like us.